So VO2 max, I would say, again, as a marker of longevity, one of the best ways you can improve that is by engaging in vigorous intensity exercise.
Should you do high-intensity exercise after 60? The gut microbiome answer. That's something I'm going to talk about today, so stick around. Hi, my name is Hachiaki Takamiya, a 63-year-old biohacker based on Japanese natural health and the author of Live Wiser, Not Smarter. The other day, I shared with you that high-intensity exercise like Norwegian 4x4 can be detrimental to your gut health. However, many experts, including Dr. Rhonda Patrick, advocate vigorous intensity exercise, especially Norwegian 4x4 protocol. So, some of you may be confused. Who is right? I'm not saying experts like Dr. Rhonda Patrick are wrong. I think they are making a valid argument. It is a lot more nuanced than I said the other day. So in order to clarify this point, I decided to make another video. And this time, I am talking about people over 60, whether this type of exercise is beneficial for people over 60 or not. So first, I'll share with you Dr. Rhonda Patrick's perspective on vigorous intensity exercise. Then I'll share with you the research on the effects of intense exercise on the gut microbiome and the pros and cons of high-intensity exercise, what you need to pay attention to if you're over 60, and my personal experience as a 63-year-old, and finally, what I recommend for people over 60, the type of HIIT, duration, and frequency. So please watch the video until the end. For those of you who just discovered this video today, this is the Ikigai diet channel, which is about how to increase health span for people over 50 or 60. So this is not a usual channel because often if you search under health and longevity, you find channels whose audience are younger people in their 40s, and often they are interested in athletic outcome as well. So sometimes the advice you get from those channels are not relevant to people over 50 or 60. But this channel is dedicated to people over 50 and 60, so you are in the right channel. I am the author of 4 books. I usually cover things like diet, exercise, mindset, and anything else that is related to increasing health span. So if you're over 50 or 60 and interested in health span extension, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Rhonda Patrick's perspective on vigorous intensity exercise. More potent stimulus. Vigorous exercise is a more powerful signal for the body to adapt. It pushes the cardiovascular system to its limit, forcing the heart to become stronger and more efficient at pumping blood and oxygen. This is a much stronger stimulus for improving VO2 max than a steady, moderate intensity workout. Addressing non-responders. Research she cites, for example, in a podcast with Dr. Martin Guevara, suggests that up to 40% of people may not see a measurable improvement in their VO2 max from moderate exercise alone. For these non-responders, high-intensity exercise is often needed to trigger a cardiovascular adaptation. Mitochondrial health. High-intensity exercise like the Norwegian 4x4 triggers a cellular repair process called mitophagy, which recycles damaged mitochondria. It also stimulates the creation of new mitochondria, This leads to a greater number of healthier mitochondria, which in turn improves the body's ability to use oxygen. Time efficiency. The Norwegian 4x4 protocol is highly efficient. It can be performed in just 35 minutes, including warm up and cool down, offering significant gains in VO2 max and heart health that would require many hours of zone 2 training to achieve. By the way, those of you who don't know what VO2 max is, VO2 max is the maximum rate at which your body can use oxygen during intense exercise, and it serves as a key indicator of your cardiovascular and respiratory fitness. This is often considered to be one of the best indicator of your longevity or health span. And if you don't know what Norwegian 4x4 protocol is, so this is a workout that first you do short warm up after 5 minutes, and then you do sprinting at 85% to 95% of maximum heart rate, which is between zone 4 and zone 5, or at least at the maximum speed you can sustain for 4 minutes. Then rest, such as a very light walking to allow the heart rate to decrease for 3 minutes. So you do 4 minutes of high intensity exercise and 3 minutes of resting. You can just rest without walking or doing anything. And that is also fine too. And you do that for 4 sets. So that's why it is called 4x4. 4 minutes of high intensity exercise 4 times. Okay, the research on the effects of intense exercise on the gut microbiome. The one that I looked at is called Interplay between exercise and gut microbiome in the context of human health and performance. Moderate exercise up to 70% VO2 max, which is somewhere like zone 1 and zone 2. This type of exercise has a largely positive effect on the health of an average person. It is shown to reduce inflammation, improve body composition, and lead to beneficial changes in the gut microbiome. This includes increasing the diversity of the gut bacteria and the production of important microbial byproducts like short-chain fatty acids. Intense exercise, over 70% of VO2 max, which is like zone 4 or zone 5. Conversely, very intense or long duration exercise can be detrimental. It can increase the permeability of the gut lining and reduce the thickness of the gut mucus, potentially allowing pathogens to enter the bloodstream and leading to increased inflammation. This is a major reason why many ultra-endurance athletes experience gastrointestinal issues. Elite athletes and the gut microbiome. Interestingly, the review notes that elite athletes seems to have a more resilient gut. Their gut microbiota shows a higher level of diversity and a shift towards bacterial species that are highly efficient at metabolizing carbohydrates and fibers. This in turn allows them to produce more key metabolites like short-chain fatty acid, which are beneficial for their health and performance. A two-way street. The article also highlights a biodirectional relationship between the gut and exercise. Rodent studies have shown that while exercise clearly impacts the composition of the gut microbiota, the microbiome itself may also influence an athlete's performance. For example, some bacteria can help produce energy from metabolites like lactic acid, which can improve endurance capacity. Key takeaway. So, elite athletes and regular individuals are different. Very intense or long duration exercise can be detrimental, and Norwegian 4x4 is the combination of the two. So among HIIT, the one with a longer duration should be cautioned, not necessarily all types of HIIT. Okay, let's review heart rate zones one more time for those of you who are not familiar with this. So there are 5 zones. Zone 1, very light, 50% to 60% of your heart rate max. Zone 2, light, 60% to 70% of heart rate max. Zone 3, moderate, 70% to 80% of heart rate max. Zone 4, hard, 80% to 90% of heart rate max. Zone 5, maximum, 90% to 100% of heart rate max. So HIIT is usually between zone 4 and zone 5. And IWT, interval walking training, that I have been talking about recently, is between zone 1 and zone 2. And regular walking, such as 10,000 step walking, is usually zone 1. And jogging is often zone 2, depending on the speed of course. So if you practice IWT, the so-called Japanese walking technique, or regular walking or zone 2 jogging, usually you are safe and it can help your gut microbiome positively. But if you do some sort of high intensity exercise at zone 4 or zone 5, you need to be careful. But it depends on how much stress you feel. So not necessarily high intensity exercise itself, how much stress you feel by doing each exercise. So that means individual fitness levels matter, and duration and frequency matter. That brings to the pros and cons of high intensity exercise. So the pros, more effective VO2 max training and time efficient. The cons may have a negative impacts on gut health and more strenuous and harder for seniors. So we are talking about seniors after 60. Now, I shared with you this study before, this Stanford study read by Dr. Michael Snyder. Humans age dramatically in 2 births at 44, then 60. According to the study, when people reach their early 60s, they experience significant molecular changes that affect several key bodily functions. So let's look at research Dr. Patrick often highlights as powerful evidence for the benefits of vigorous exercise. The trial involved 61 healthy, sedentary, middle-aged participants, average age 53. So they are slightly younger than people over 60. They were put on a 2-year exercise program that gradually increased in intensity. The program included 2 Norwegian 4x4 HIIT sessions per week, along with other moderate intensity workouts. The results showed that these participants were able to reverse their heart aging by 20 years, making their heart function like those of healthy 30-year-old. So this is done by the middle-aged people, not necessarily senior citizens. For the case of people over 60, the immune system's function declines after 60, making the body less effective at fighting off disease. Bifidobacterial levels tend to decrease in the gut with age, particularly after the age of 60. Therefore, this point here, very intense or long duration exercise can increase the permeability of the gut lining and reduce the thickness of the gut mucus, potentially allowing pathogens to enter the bloodstream and leading to increased inflammation affect people over 60 more. Okay, so in that case, for those of us who are over 60, is it worth taking the risk? The benefits outweigh the risk. So let's look at some of the benefits. Time efficient. Is time important for us? I mean, if you're younger and working, you need to commute to work, time is crucial. But a lot of us are retired now. Time is not an issue, is it? Okay, so how much time are we talking about here? Dr. Rhonda Patrick recommends 35 minutes of Norwegian 4x4 twice a week. That means 70 minutes per week. But if you were to achieve the same result by doing zone 2 training, it requires 2 or 3 times longer. And that means about 140 to 210 minutes. How long is that? So in my case, you know that I practice Japanese jogging technique, which is the hybrid of steady zone 2 jogging and walk jog interval. I do this 3 times a week. On Monday for 45 minutes, Wednesday 60 minutes, and Friday 45 minutes, which is 150 minutes. That is within that range. Actually, twice as long as the one that Dr. Patrick recommends. Not reaching 3 times as long, but twice as long. Okay, so instead of 70 minutes, it takes 150 minutes. That means 80 minutes more. But is that a big deal? Is this 80 minutes waste of your time? I don't think so. It actually gives me time to meditate. And personally, I would not trade this precious time with Norwegian 4x4 because if you practice Norwegian 4x4, you cannot meditate. The quality of the exercise is very different, especially for your mentality. It is great to slow down in old age. In fact, I think this is more appropriate to our age. I think there is a life cycle, just like circadian rhythm, circa-monthly rhythm, and circa-annual rhythm. For example, we say that it is good to do things according to the circadian rhythm. Therefore, you want to be active during the day and you want to be quiet at night. You don't want to be exercising in the middle of night, even though exercise can be beneficial. In the same way, you don't want to be doing a type of exercise that may not align with your life stage. So we have a infant stage, childhood, teenage, early adulthood, middle ages, and old age. And let's look at the music, for example. When we are in the infant period, we tend to like very slow music, such as classical music. And then from teenage to early adulthood, we start appreciating like rock music, punk, hip hop, more kind of energetic, sort of fast-paced music. But as we get older, we go back to the original sense again, and I start appreciating classical music, that kind of sort of slow-paced music. So in the same way, exercise like high intensity aerobic exercise and strength training, like a heavy weight strength training, are more suitable for younger age, and more slow tempo exercise like qigong and yoga are more suitable for old age. That's how I feel anyway. But what about you? Don't you get the same kind of feeling? In that case, isn't it better for us to take time? Taking time means more beneficial for us. We can slow down, relax, and enjoy the every moment. Okay, now I'll share with you my personal experience as a 63-year-old of doing high intensity exercise. I know this is anecdotal information, but sometimes anecdotal information can be valuable more than research data because research data give you numbers, but it doesn't provide emotions. And quite often, you don't get a holistic picture if you don't include emotions. Personal experience can be different from person to person, but quite often we have similar experiences. How many times have you experienced this? Like you shared your personal story and others said, I know exactly what you mean. I felt the same way. I had exactly the same experience. So it is common for us to have similar experiences. Humans are the same. Basically, we have the same senses and we seem to respond to certain situation in a similar fashion. So if you hear one person's experience, even though this is just a personal experience, sometimes we can learn a lot from it. Okay, so I have done Norwegian 4x4-ish cycling. I say 4-ish because it's not exactly the same as regular Norwegian 4x4. I did the cycling in zone 4 intensity, not zone 5. It was impossible for me to continue cycling at zone 5 intensity. The best I could do was cycling in zone 4 intensity, and it was very hard. It was very difficult, especially the first time and the second time. But once I got used to doing it, I was able to do it. But remember, I was doing this zone 2 jogging 1 year before trying this. And then before that, I practiced Nordic walking for 3 years. So I had the foundation, I had the kind of a aerobic base. Also, generally speaking, I think I have a higher VO2 max than other people. Like as a teenager, I was very fast at long distance running. I was always number one in class for 2,000-meter running. So I could do it, but it doesn't mean average people over 60 can do it easily. It is a very strenuous workout. Let's take a look at longevity bacteria for a moment. You know, this longevity bacteria, which was discovered abundant in the gut of Japanese centurions in Kyotango region, which has 3 times as many centurions as the Japanese national average. So this bacteria is called butyrate producing bacteria. And we know that doing low intensity aerobic exercise, especially zone 2 level exercise for 30 to 60 minutes, 3 times a week, can increase butyrate producing bacteria. But we don't know about the higher intensity exercise. Okay, so the question is, do they do HIIT? Do the centurions practice high intensity interval training? Well, they don't. In Kyotango, they usually walk and they work in their garden. So their exercise intensity is somewhere between low to moderate intensity interval, including this walking. So usually it kind of stays in this intensity. Sometimes you might go to higher intensity like zone 3 or zone 4 if you dig the field, for example, but you never continue doing that for 4 minutes. I mean, if it becomes higher intensity, it is just, 30 seconds or up to 1 minute, never for the period of 4 minutes. And that is pretty much the same in other blue zones too. I don't think any centurions in Sardinia, Italy, or Icaria, Greece practice high intensity interval training. Um, and even when you look at regular sports too, you think some of the sports are pretty high intense. And I think soccer can be a high intensity interval training, but duration of high intensity is not 4 minutes, somewhere between 20 seconds to 1 minute, but never 4 minutes. You sprint for 10 seconds and you stop and you sprint again, and then you kind of run slowly and so on. So that means in our daily life, we hardly experience that kind of high intensity activity. Okay. What I recommend for people over 60, the type of HIIT, duration, and frequency. First of all, it all depends on your fitness level. And if you have a medical condition, always consult your doctor first. In fact, if you're over 60, I recommend that you consult your doctor first anyway. And it is all subjective. How much stress you feel from each exercise. Not necessarily the type of exercise, but how much stress you feel from it. So do you know hormesis? So this is a kind of poison, but if it is a low dose, it can give you some benefit. But when it becomes a high dose, it becomes poison. So you need the right balance. Not too much, but not too little. The right amount. So for the duration, long enough, but not too long. If you find Norwegian 4x4 too long, there are other HIIT which have shorter duration, such as Tabata protocol. And that is, you do high intensity activity at zone 5 intensity for 20 seconds. Then you have a 10 seconds rest and you do that for 8 sets. So the 20 seconds is much shorter than the 4 minutes of the Norwegian 4x4. Also, there is a method where you do a minute run and a minute rest, and you do that for 10 sets. So there are different types of high intensity interval training. And Dr. Rhonda Patrick says that if you cannot do Norwegian 4x4, you can always do these type of HIIT, and those are effective as well. And for the frequency, if you choose a long duration HIIT, then fewer frequency. For Norwegian 4x4, I'd do only up to once a week. I wouldn't do twice a week. That would be too frequent. But for short duration, such as Tabata, more frequency is okay. Maybe for Tabata, you can do it up to 3 times a week, but twice a week or once a week is also sufficient. But anyway, for most people over 60, I recommend low intensity exercise, not high intensity exercise. You can do your exercise in your zone 1 intensity or zone 2 intensity, which means IWT or regular walking or zone 2 jogging, or the Japanese jogging technique that I have been talking about. And that is sufficient. In fact, those low intensity aerobic exercise can activate autophagy, which is a cellular recycling mechanism critical for longevity. And if you do that for 60 minutes, you can activate autophagy greatly. So, according to Dr. Tommy Wood, Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Neuroscience at University of Washington, a 60-minute bout of low-level intensity aerobic exercise at approximately 50 to 60% VO2 max, which is about zone 1 and zone 2, upregulate autophagy as much as a 72-hour fast in human. That is incredible benefit. So I think doing just low intensity aerobic exercise is sufficient in my opinion. And also you want to think about other exercises that are important to increase your health span, such as strength training, weight-bearing exercise, balance, flexibility, and mobility. And if you have time to do more exercise, you might as well do those. So I would personally prioritize doing those exercises instead of optimizing cardiovascular training by adding high intensity interval training. I'll show you some of the strength training that I practice. I do push-ups. By the way, I usually do body weight training. So I do push-ups and I do squat. Squat is very good. It really trains your legs. And lower body part is important to increase your health span. So I do recommend practicing squat a lot. Then I do jump box, which is also good as a weight-bearing exercise because when you run, you have a strong impact on the bones. Then I do put-up and chin-ups and the dead hang, which are all good to improve your grip strength. Now, doing put-up and chin-ups are slightly difficult for some of you. Then you can just do a dead hang. That is still very good exercise. And as a matter of fact, I do combine these exercises with Tabata protocol. I don't always do my exercise with zone 5. Probably most of it is zone 4. And the resting is not always 10 seconds. I mean, mostly some of the things like push-ups and stuff like that, I rest just for 10 seconds. But when I do jump box or put up and chin up, I rest longer, maybe 30 seconds to 40 seconds. And when I do sprinting, I do a 20-second run and then 60-second rest, and I only do it just for 2 sets. So you can make your variation depending on your fitness level. What is important here is to lose your breath, which can happen if you practice most HIIT. In fact, even if I do a regular strength training with longer break, like maybe 2 minutes break, I still lose my breath after doing one strength training. And then according to Dr. David Sinclair, this is important to activate sirtuin, which is also important for longevity, what he called the state of hypoxia. You want to create this state of hypoxia, and you can achieve that without doing Norwegian 4x4. We're just doing regular high-intensity exercise. So what I do is this. So Monday, I do the Japanese jogging for 45 minutes. And Tuesday, I do Qigong and body weight HIIT, which is a body weight Tabata and flexibility for 35 minutes. Wednesday, I do Japanese jogging for 60 minutes. And Thursday, Qigong and body weight Tabata and flexibility for 35 minutes. Friday, Japanese jogging for 45 minutes. Saturday, body weight Tabata and flexibility just for 20 minutes. But it's all up to you, up to your fitness level. You can do more, you can do less. And if you like, instead of doing Japanese jogging on Friday, you can replace it with Norwegian 4x4 just once a week. So, and if you do this with cycling, it has another advantage that you can lower the risk of knee damage. So just doing jogging twice a week and once a week you switch to cycling. That's one option. But anyway, it's all up to your fitness level. So you need to think of your own regimen. To do that, you want to understand the type of exercises available to increase health span. So please read chapter 5, the ideal exercise to increase health span in Live Wiser, Not Smarter. Okay, so to sum up, for most people, low intensity exercise is sufficient. And if you have time to do HIIT, prioritize other exercises to increase health span, such as strength training and flexibility training. If you can find HIIT that can be combined with strength training, like Tabata, you can do that. Tabata's high intensity segment is just 20 seconds, much shorter than that of Norwegian 4x4. You can do that up to 3 times a week, but twice a week or once a week is also good. If you're fit enough, you can do Norwegian 4x4, but limit it to doing once a week. Okay, thank you for watching. Again, my name is Hachiaki Takamiya, the author of Live Wiser, Not Smarter. If you like this video, please give me your thumb up and subscribe to my channel. And please leave your comment. What is your experience with high intensity interval training? What type of HIIT have you done? And how do you feel doing those exercises? I have spoken about the Japanese jogging technique. If you don't know how to do it, please watch this video.